Harold Fannin Jr. might be the greatest receiving tight end we have ever seen, yet somehow many teams may not even have him as a top 100 prospect. Fannin Jr. will be a controversial prospect as he's not the type of tight end you can slide into any scheme. If a team drafts him, they will need to have a plan for him unless they want to set him up for failure. Despite that, there's a reason I call him the greatest receiving tight end prospect to ever come out of the draft, even better than Colston Loveland. This year, he had 117 catches for 1,555 yards. That is unheard of. Bowling Green may not be a good team, but he absolutely destroyed elite teams when he played against them. He had 137 yards against Penn State and 145 against Texas A&M. This guy's a Madden character. It's actually a joke. Despite coming from a small school in Bowling Green, Fannin Jr. will most likely still go high in the draft just because of how high his ceiling is. He's a potential matchup nightmare for any player because of his size and skill. He's a strong receiver whose hands might as well be a vacuum and is insane after the catch because of his combination of strength and speed. If you don't specifically game plan around Fannin Jr., he will cook your favorite team. 1,555 yards is insane for any person, let alone an unranked linebacking prospect in the class of 2022. He learned how to catch the ball 3 years ago, and he's doing all this. By the way, in case this wasn't obvious, he led all of college football in receiving yards, having almost 200 more yards than anyone else. He led college football in receiving, being used and abused more than any other player across all of college football, and he missed a grand total of 0 games. He is as reliable as they come, and his health isn't the only thing reliable, because this might be an overused saying, but he truly makes 50-50 balls 90-10. And he's not just a huge jump ball guy, because his route running is way too smooth for a guy his size, which is 6'4", 238. And that's a legit 6'4", 238, because in 2024, he had 868 yards after contact and 32 missed tackles. This guy was Bowling Green. He did everything for them. If he wasn't making plays, no one was. And even when he was, oftentimes, no one else was making plays. He had 213 yards and a touchdown in his ball game, and they still lost by an entire touchdown because his running back had 15 yards. If Fannin Jr. had a better program, he'd be so much more hyped because he's proven that he can do it at the top of the level whenever he played A&M and Penn State and absolutely dominated them. The second player with the most receiving yards for Bowling Green all season had 1/3 of Fannin's receiving yards. A lot of people ignore his blocking skills because he's a smaller tight end who will most likely be forced into the slot in the NFL, but he's a fantastic blocker for his size and an especially good lead blocker, which is a very useful skill in the NFL. He's stronger than he looks, and while you may not want him in line on running plays, you definitely want him out there. I keep on mentioning not in line, and that's because his main drawback is that he's very light. If you line him up in line to pass block, an NFL edge is definitely going to run right through him, but I don't see that as much of a concern as others because so many tight ends have made themselves millions through their receiving work alone, and he's a better receiving prospect than all of them were. The main problem that I see with Fannin is the fact that his speed is only mediocre for this tweener tight end wide receiver position that he plays. Unlike Pitts, who is also positionless, he can't blow past you up the seams and catch a 70-yard go ball, instead favoring mossing the absolute hell out of his defender. He can also make up for his lack of speed with his insane ability to find soft spots in zone coverage really well. So to sum it up, you can't play zone on him because he's too smart of an NFL player and will find the pocket, and you can't play man on him because he's too good of a route runner for linebackers and too strong for corners. Also, he didn't perform the best at the Senior Bowl, but his film was enough that I'm confident he's a better player than we saw at the Senior Bowl. Do you see now why the greatest receiving tight end prospect we've ever seen will not touch the first round and will be out of many teams' top 100s? He's an amazing receiver, but he's too slow. He's an amazing tight end, but he's too small. He's an enigma who in my eyes will be must-see TV. If you get this guy into the right system, he has the potential to become one of the best tight ends of all time, and if he's in the wrong system, he just might be out of the league in 2 years. If he can make it, he will truly prove skill is more important than talent. So many guys are stronger or faster than him, yet nobody is Harold Fannin Jr. He is truly the most unique prospect that I've ever had the pleasure of scouting. This transitions as well into the NFL comp section of this video. And while I said Fannin is super unique and truly one of a kind, if I had to compare him to someone, I'd compare him to Isaiah Likely. Like Likely, Fannin also lines up at a bunch of positions, although he's a little lighter, so he probably can't line up as much inline. They're both great athletes with elite receiving ability and even better yak potential. Also, they're both coming out of small schools, Fannin obviously coming out of Bowling Green and Likely Coastal Carolina. That's as close of a comp you're going to get for a guy like Fannin who's so unique and will just provide such a unique skill set for any NFL team. For team fits, any team with a need at slot receiver or tight end can use Harold Fannin. I hope he goes to an offensive-minded coach that can scheme him correctly because his development and production really depends on how a coach uses him. Like, for example, I don't want him going to the Steelers because, well, we already have a great tight end in Muth, but also because I know Mike Tomlin won't change anything. He'll just plop him there as a normal tight end and ruin his development because the standard is the standard and we can never see change. But that's fine. If I had to pick a team to draft them, I would pick the Saints. Obviously, we don't know their next head coach, so we don't know if they'd even run a scheme that would benefit Fannin or if the coach would even like Fannin. But the Saints need another receiving threat, and they could use a tight end or a slot in case Rashid Shaheed gets injured again, which obviously we never hope, but he's missed 18 games in 3 years, so you have to be cautious. Thanks for watching, like and subscribe and comment any other prospects you want me to analyze.